record to the cloud. Okay.
Brady will know where the cloud is.
Okay, good. All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Felika Ahostin Bryant. I'm the director of the Native American Educational and Culture Center at Purdue University, and we are back here for another episode of our NAECC Throwback Thursday chats. Today, I am pleased to have Janelle Cronin, who is one of our Purdue alums, joining us. Janelle received her master's in ecological sciences and environment, and as well as education in 2018, I'm sorry. And so she currently is residing out in New Mexico. So we're really happy to have Janelle here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and just get started with the questions here. So why don't you share with us your pathway to Purdue?
Okay, so this actually started at Haskell Indian Nations University. My teacher at the time was Melinda Adams. She also went through the Purdue and Sloan program. As a teacher, she would invite different community members and recruiters to come, and Kevin Gibson from Sloan was one of the presenters. So he came to our class and gave us the whole spiel about Purdue and Sloan, and he invited anyone who was interested to dinner that evening. And so I remember kind of, taking notes and listening, and honestly, at the time, I had no intentions of going to graduate school. But as I was walking out of the class, Melinda stopped me and asked me, like, are you going to come to dinner tonight? And I was like, no, like pretty much just going to get my bachelor's and I'm done with school. And she was one of the main people that really encouraged me, like, just come to the meeting, just listen to what he has to say, and that's it. So I went to the dinner, I got to meet Kevin. And what's funny is he is Melinda's mentor and I think advisor. And he would come to Lawrence, Kansas periodically, and she would take me to every single meeting that she had. And that's how I really strengthened my relationship with Kevin Gibson. And I started getting comfortable enough to really have honest conversations with him about, what does, like, my research, what could it look like? What is campus life like? And that was really the deciding factor for me to go to Purdue, because I'd never been to Indiana. I'd never even really heard of Purdue. And luckily, Kevin stepped in and reassured me that I'd have support and that I'd have a community and I'd have resources to help me. So he became one of the big people in my life that helped me get there. And there's one program in particular that I'm so glad somebody out there thought of me and was like, you need to be here and do this. And it was Purdue's SROP program, like the Student Research Opportunities Program. So after I graduated from Haskell in May, I immediately went to Purdue for June, July, and then school started in August. And that summer research opportunities program, like, one gave me research and I got to work with my advisor, which was cool. But the other half of it was like, get your student ID, here's a map of campus, go visit the different centers. And that really helped me just like acclimate to the campus. So on the first day of classes, I had confidence and I could walk around and I knew where I was going. So I kind of look back and that was my journey. Yeah, so I'm very grateful for the people along the way. I wouldn't have made it without them.
Okay, great. That's a wonderful experience, especially with the SROP, because it's been very helpful, like you were saying, to get students to acclimate to campus. So maybe you can share with us, what was your favorite Purdue experience while you were on campus?
So I feel very fortunate that Standing Rock happened during my time as a graduate student. Just being like active and going out there and dropping off donations and everything really opened up so many opportunities on campus. I went from just going to classes every day to now, being asked to speak at those classes, lead presentations and speak at rallies. And I started to really, form bonds with the different centers on campus outside of the NAECC. I started to really gather support and meet really incredible people that supported me and my message and the community and what was going on. And I just look back at, that's probably one of the highlights of my time at Purdue, just because of the opportunities it opened. And it opened up my art I got to do more of that. And I'm really grateful that you, Felica, had the Native student like kind of art shows on campus. That was really fun. Just, I'd never done anything like that before. What else happened? I think those are like, when I really look back and reflect, those were the highlights of my time here. Had a lot of fun. Like I said, met great people that I'm still friends with today.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I know that you were a wealth of knowledge when you were on campus, given that you were very active with social justice issues and everything. And I always remember this class, we held a class presentation, and there was one individual, as you were talking about your experience at Standing Rock. And I always remember how she really got emotional. I'm not sure if you remember this, but she was sitting in one of the front rows and she got emotional. And I think it was very helpful for the campus community to hear your perspective and your personal accounts, because for many of the campus community, they were far removed from it. You know, Standing Rock is happening elsewhere. So as a result, you know, bringing that personal experience really helped them to feel like they were part of it, and they could feel the pain that you were talking about and everything. So I really do appreciate all those wonderful experiences you shared with us. So you talked about your classwork. So maybe you can share what was your favorite class, or I've also been asking people if they want to share what was their least favorite class and why it was challenging and how they overcame some of the challenges there.
I think in the beginning, like my first year in school, it's the seminar classes that I really liked. One, they always fed us, which was awesome. Someone thought to bring food, you know, you'd have like a 2 or 3 hour kind of seminar period. But another goal of those seminars was to help you build the community within like your department. And that was like crucial because at the time, you know, hey, I'm just doing what's required of me. But like I said, I look back and it's like, wow, some of like my best friends and colleagues and people I still like want to work with and do work with, we were all in those seminar courses together. And I like the interdisciplinary approach of it. I'm thinking probably more along the lines of ESE, where anybody, like we had a bunch of different majors all together, but all talking about the same issue, which made the conversations like lively. And, you know, you got to hear perspectives from different people, and they encouraged it, and they encourage you to question each other. And I think that's what I miss, is just the seminar. It was a really good foundation starter as like a student. So you had friends on campus, you could like do projects together. Like I said, it was really good the first year of just building each other up. As far as classes I didn't like, I'll be honest, statistics was very difficult. It was just a lot of math and concepts and trying to get like my research quantified. And I want to say it was this class where I told my teacher, like, I feel like a treaty reader. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, some things are written so ambiguously that I have to think that way. Or sometimes I have to read the fine print. And it was just, I think, the way his class was structured, and he had won all these awards for being a great teacher, and he was. But he welcomed those kind of conversations because, right, it was me trying to understand his approach to teaching math and numbers and statistics. And it was kind of making me open my eyes of like how finally I have to read the detail and, like I said, quantify my research. So he wasn't a bad teacher. It was just a lot of math, and that wasn't where I was the strongest. And I hope I don't ever have to take that course again, but we'll see.
And I know I've heard from plenty of other students who've also offered the same type of sentiments, given that the statistics class is always one of the most challenging classes they have. So congratulations for passing that class. So one item that you mentioned was talking about your experiences and bringing that into the classroom. And that was something I always try to prepare students for, because unfortunately, we recognize that Purdue is a very challenging place to be because there's very little Native representation. So as a result, many students will often come to the classroom and they are I hate to say they're the representatives of Native people. So, they come in there, and if there's a topic focused on Native people, the instructors automatically shift to what is your perspective? And I know that has happened many times in the past, and putting students on the spot, feeling that they have to speak on behalf of all Native people. So that's one thing I always try to make sure I prepare students for. So I'm not sure if you had any of those experiences, or if you'd like to share something along those lines.
Yes, I would. And this happened my first semester, and it was one of those kind of like comments where I was almost like shocked that he said this. It was a presenter. So there was a guest lecturer from Australia, and he was giving this whole presentation to our seminar course, and it had all these wonderful charts and graphs and numbers. And basically the message was Australia's economy is declining. So we need a huge influx of immigrants to come to the country in order for our economy to grow. So just as a Native person, I just like raised my hand in the back of the class, and I just asked him, what do the First Nation people, the Aboriginal people of Australia think about this plan? And he just bluntly looked at me and said, you know what? They have other issues to worry about, such as like alcoholism in their communities. And then he just continued. And I just kind of remember sitting there like, did he say that? And I was like, I kind of looked around, and luckily one of my friends in front of me kind of was shocked too. So I was like, yep, he did say that. So I raised my hand again, and I said, you know what? You're not aware, but there's a Native person, an Indigenous person sitting here in this room. And the way you talk about Aboriginal people in your country is the same way the US talks about us in ours. So I know the answer to my question. I know that these people, these First Nation people, want your plan to fail so that you can get the hell out of their country. They want this economy to fail, leave. And he was like shocked. But my teacher at the front of the room, he was smiling. He was like nodding his head, and he gave me that validation, like, good for you, girl. Because it was hard. It's hard to kind of speak up, or it's kind of like I said, I almost second guessed myself. Like, did I hear that? Am I the person that's overreacting? So it was really nice to have support that day, especially from the teacher, like the leader of the room. He didn't, I wasn't like in trouble in any way. It was encouraged, and he saw my strength. And like I said, it happens anywhere, and you just have to have that courage and that strength and like the eloquency to respond to like hateful and hurtful comments like that. Unfortunately, that gentleman, I just think he thought no one's gonna like push back on that, or there's no other Indigenous people in this room, so what does it matter? I'm just gonna say this. And here we are at Purdue, and he was like a guest speaker that they brought in, and they were trying to make him a big deal. And yeah, so I think that was my first experience with it. And that story just kind of like stuck with me, because it was also a high five to myself, where I was like, good for you, Janelle. Like, you said something. You shut that guy up. You made him question what he said. You held him accountable. So yeah, that's one story that I feel comfortable sharing.
And I'm sure there are many more, but I think that's a good experience to share, given that this particular message, we're hoping that it'll go across, all over different audiences. And if maybe there's somebody out there who is struggling to find their own voice, but also if there are other people that are wanting to find ways to kind of connect with people. So I think that's a wonderful experience. So thank you for sharing. So let's kind of shift over and talk about maybe some participation in student organizations, because I know ACES is a prominent organization on campus. And I think you may have even gone to some of the ACES conferences. So maybe if you want to talk about your experience with the ACES or the conferences.
So the funny thing is I've actually been involved with ACES before Purdue. I started doing, their student science fairs as young as, I want to say about 6th grade. And they would host them here in Albuquerque. And my parents would be judges. So they would always encourage us, like all their kids to, submit and be a part of it. So I've known about ACES for a very long time, and I'm very fortunate to have a Native STEM-based organization that provides like so many opportunities, like poster presentations, all the way up to being a judge and getting to judge those things and all the resources they have at their convention. Um, and what's funny is I always thought ACES would stop at some point, like, okay, I got my bachelor's, I guess I'm done. But then here at Purdue, our Sloan program's like so active with ACES that I got to go to the conferences every year. And I like that it has become a meeting spot for Sloan all over all the campuses to come together and get to know each other and network. And you don't really realize how important that is until you join the professional world. And now all of a sudden, right, they're your colleagues, you got to work with them or start some kind of collaboration. So I appreciate that even though I wasn't a student, that because I was a Sloan alumni, I was able to be invited back to the ACES conference as long as, I got to talk about my current job and show student resources. That was really huge for me. Just as like a young professional, I still felt a part of the community, and that is like largely tied to Sloan, but it was also that ACES provided that space for all of us to just, continue to network and continue to just stay connected with each other.
Okay, great. So now that we talked about all your Purdue experiences and how you were able to get involved across campus, maybe now you can talk about, let's shift gears and talk about your experience after post Purdue and how it helped to prepare you for your the next chapter of your life.
So I actually get asked, excuse me, this question a lot. As an undergrad, my degree was in natural science. Purdue, my master's was in science. And I took my first professional job in development. And so even my own coworkers at American Indian Graduate Center kind of asked me like, how did you make that jump? You weren't in the business field, or, you didn't have degrees in this, and yet you're successful in what you do. And so I kind of look back and it's like, as a researcher, I was given a lot of good skills in writing, research writing, which is so similar to grant writing, right? So like, you just have to strengthen that skill set. Presentations is another thing, poster presentations, classrooms, everything. It's that public speaking, it's getting all your thoughts and ideas together in a clear and concise way. That also has to deal with like networking. I am a very outgoing person, and I do like formulating personal connections with people. And that's a skill that I learned is highly desired in development, right? You have to make conversations with people. You have to be able to explain to this person why you should listen. Why does this matter? Why should you work with us or support us? You have to be able to write all of this out too in grant style writing to get projects funded, because I work for a nonprofit. So it just turned out a lot of skill sets that I was gathering as a student applied to my professional life. I didn't have to have a degree in MBA for them to take me seriously. All it took was I needed my own personal confidence. And I had to know that I had the capability to do something other than work in a lab. And a lot of that has to do with my experience as an undergrad. Of course, I was in the science department, so they encouraged us to do internships in the summer. I did internships that I thought were fun, things that interested me. So instead of doing like a hard STEM, I would go do like public health, because I wanted to talk to people and I wanted to be able to explain, hard science terms and layman's terms. Like, I just picked things that I thought were fun. And that, like I said, helped broaden my skill set. Instead of focusing and getting very narrow, it was like, why not? Why not work for this? Or why not be an English tutor at the Student Success Center? Why not work with Special Olympics? Like, I just took every opportunity to just basically gain a good skill set. And I have never been disappointed. And it gave me, like I said, that confidence to know and my own personal capabilities and trust myself in making a huge jump, going from what I knew in the sciences to something new in development, but just knowing that I could do it.
There's one point I want to kind of come back to, because you are your unique path is coming through the tribal college system, tribal colleges, universities. Maybe if you could talk a little bit for our audiences, they may not be fully aware of tribal colleges. Would you mind kind of just spending a couple of minutes just talking about your tribal college experience and how it prepared you to come to Purdue?
So my TCU is Haskell Indian Nations University. It's one of the original 12 boarding schools. So because of that kind of horrible history, Haskell does a really good job now about celebrating your culture, learning your language, involving your sacred knowledge basically in every aspect of who you are, including your research. So that is something that Haskell taught me that is so valuable. When I would do research, they always encouraged us to tie it back to something tangible, like a community. Also, like utilizing our knowledge as Native people. And that's huge because we're living in a Western world with Western education, and a lot of Native students don't feel adequate. Like, well, I have a low GPA, or, I have to take remedial courses, so I must be dumb and I can't do this. Or I'm a first generation student, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm not cut out for it. Already we're dealing with issues of imposter syndrome because how we were raised doesn't really quite match up with the system that we're being measured against. And so Haskell did a good job about breaking that down. So when we had history courses, we were learning about each other's tribes. And our teacher wasn't just this almighty knowledge holder. They would depend on us as students to share and encouraged us to share or to learn about each other's cultures and bring that to the classroom. And that's huge in STEM. A lot of people think, STEM, it's just numbers or you work in a lab, but it's like people are also involved in STEM. There's a huge people component. When we're talking about pipelines, it impacts human beings in a multitude of ways. It's not just the earth that we're talking about, or just the animals, or just the water. We're all connected in this bigger picture. And so Haskell gave us those opportunities to strengthen that. And one program in particular that I'd like to speak on is the Haskell Environmental Research Studies Program, also known as HERS. And where they were crucial was this is a climate-based research internship. But when you were there in the classroom, right, it was very much like, let's talk about your community, what's going on, and how is that being impacted by climate change? So we had some incredible research coming from just students. And it's because Haskell provided that safe space to talk about it, but researched it. They showed you how to research, conduct research, and gave us feedback on posters. They gave us conference opportunities where the year I participated, they took us to Hawaii and we got to present our paper there, our poster. But not only that, it was more of a tribal immersion kind of structure where we got to stay within the community, learn some language and some songs. So they thought more than just academically. They thought about us as Native people and wanted us to, build relationships with others and have connection to land, even though it was in an island where most of us weren't from. So looking at Haskell, it's just, they understand that this campus is housing hundreds of different tribes in one place in Kansas. And they build a special curriculum that's tailored to us, that's supposed to strengthen us, that makes us unique, that incorporates our culture and our community. And I feel like that going to Haskell has been one of the best academic choices I've ever made for myself, just because of how the school structure is now. And if anyone has more questions about Haskell, I could talk about it all day.
I remember that you recently did a presentation at Haskell. There was an alumni presentation you did there. You want to just kind of talk about it just a little?
Yeah. And so I mentioned I work at American Indian Graduate Center. It's one of the largest scholarship provider to American Indian, Native American, and Alaska Native students in the whole country. And so I reached out to Haskell's Trio Support Center and I put myself out there. Hey, I'm Janelle, I'm an alumni. This is when I went to Haskell. This is where I am now. And most importantly, how do I get these opportunities to our Haskell students? The American Indian College Fund is very big on campus at Haskell. There's signs everywhere, you know, they do an awards banquet for the recipients, something that I didn't really see with my current job. So I knew that Haskell didn't really know who we were, which means students weren't accessing the scholarships that they could have, as well as additional opportunities that we have. So by putting myself out there as an alumni saying, hey, I have a whole company behind me that wants to help these Native students, what can I do? They opened the doors for me and said, just come give us a presentation. We'll open it up to the whole campus, not just our trio students. And that's kind of where it went. And they asked me very similar questions, what were my experiences on campus? What internships did I utilize? And then we got into the scholarships and I could kind of show them, this is what we have for undergrads, but also this is what we have for graduate students. And a lot of people didn't know that they even existed or that this was out there. And so that's millions of dollars of scholarship opportunities that our students were missing out on. And I couldn't let that happen, right? Like, I'm passionate about education and Natives being able to access this. And I understand that financial need is a really huge factor that can make or break you as a Native student. So being able to share what I've learned at work with my Haskell community was so important to me, just because, like I said, I had students who were looking for money today as well as looking for money tomorrow. How am I going to go to graduate school? What does my future look like? So just giving them those opportunities, showing them where to apply, that was pretty big. So it was awesome. I love it. I'm glad they asked me to come speak, and I would do it again.
Okay, great. Well, we're winding down. I do want to give you a chance to, the last question I've been asking all our guest speakers is to give some advice to current students who are at Purdue, or maybe even some prospective students that are considering Purdue as a way to advance their degrees.
Okay, so my advice would be to diversify your skill set for sure. As a student, you have hundreds, thousands of opportunities to do so many cool things, such as internships and classes and visiting scholar, right? There's all these things out there, and it's like, take advantage of every single opportunity you can. Don't feel that, oh, well, I'm in STEM, I can only do STEM. Have some confidence in yourself and try something new and see whether you like it or not. Try that internship, take that student work position on campus, volunteer wherever you can. I have never taken an opportunity that I've regretted. I tried to be as active as possible, even if that meant volunteering my own free time, like I said, to help at art markets, Special Olympics, anything with athletics. And that's just huge. It's something you won't be able to do once you're not a student. It gets harder, or it becomes more competitive, to get into. So that's one advice. Two, apply when it comes to scholarships, apply for everything. Don't be afraid to get a denial letter. That doesn't mean anything. It's just, there's so much out there that they're almost not being utilized because people just aren't applying to it, or they're not taking it seriously, or so it's just like, do your research, apply to everything, and don't be afraid to get a no. And my last piece of advice is, if you're doubting yourself and you're dealing with imposter syndrome, really do turn to the people that brought you there. I feel comfortable sharing this too, is I almost quit graduate school after 1 year at Purdue. I was struggling in my classes. Me and my advisor at the time weren't clicking. there was just this huge disconnect, and I couldn't figure out from where, why, or what was going on. So I started internalizing it. And I said, well, something's wrong, so it must be me. I'm not smart enough. I don't deserve to be here, or I faked it. And, now the reality is crashing down on me. I had all of those imposter syndrome thoughts. And who did I turn to? Kevin Gibson, the main recruiter that got me here to Purdue. I went in tears to his office and had a genuine, just open conversation saying, look, I'm struggling. I'm failing a class, and I've never failed a class before. I feel like an outsider in my lab. I don't feel like my advisor understands me, and I'm going to quit. I'm going to leave. And he was the main person that just, don't leave. You're just in the wrong place, doing the wrong research. I have your back. And he helped me find my new advisor, my new lab, and now I have a master's degree. And yes, I could turn to my family and my parents, but it was some of these external people that really got me here. Falika, you're included in that group. Ken's included in that group. Kevin, Stephanie, there were some key players on campus that really just, don't leave, we'll help you, don't quit. This is probably what's going on. And I just really look back on the connections I made over the years and how much I value them, and I wouldn't have been this far. So, like I said, to the students who are dealing with imposter syndrome, who are doubting themselves, who don't believe they can do this, just remember where you come from, the sacred knowledge that you hold that no one else on this campus, in this classroom, in this room holds. That's your knowledge. And don't forget, we're being compared to this Western education system that wasn't created for us. And that's why it feels like we're failing, but we're not. All of us who succeed are a huge success story for our communities. And you have hundreds of people behind you who are willing to help you, fight for you, advocate for you. It's just seeking out that help before it's too late, before you quit. So I think that's my advice.
Yeah, that's some wonderful advice. So thank you for sharing all of that. And it takes a lot of maturity and as well as bravery, just to kind of, as you were talking about, seeking out, finding that you're struggling and reaching out to people. So I think your message is a very powerful one, because hopefully it'll motivate other people who find themselves in that particular situation to find their voice and to seek out some assistance. Because I think once that happened for you, I think everything just kind of clicked and you fell into place. And then after that, you saw your pathway and you were able to move forward. So I always appreciate those type of stories, just given that, we that's one of the biggest things that we want to make sure students understand, is that we're here to help and provide that opportunity and help clear the path so that way you can move forward. So thanks for sharing that. And also, again, I appreciate all that you did for our community while you were with us. You worked at the center as one of our graduate assistants, and so you were able to communicate the message about sharing Indigenous knowledge across campus. So that's another invaluable asset that you were to the center. So I greatly appreciate that. And so that kind of brings us to a close. It's kind of hard to believe that, half an hour goes by so quickly. So I really do appreciate you spending some time with us and sharing your story on your lunch hour. So hopefully you'll have a chance to get some food here. But I do thank you. We're going to be posting this throughout our social media and on our YouTube page. So hopefully we'll get people that'll come and join us and offer some comments. So feel free to share this once. I'll share it with you once we get this going live. So to everybody out there, thank you for joining us. And we have some more events coming up. So please look out for our social media pages as well as our website, where we'll have all information. Thank you and have a good day.